Okay, good afternoon and welcome to this second student debrief. And today we're going to be discussing university and college cutbacks. So just for those of you who are new to the student debriefs, they are quarterly catch-ups between the OFS students and student representatives. And the aim of the events is to ensure that we can share relevant information and receive student feedback on a regular basis. So your input today will be used to shape our approach to protecting students in the face of university and college cutbacks. So a little bit of housekeeping just before we start. We will be encouraging your active participation throughout this presentation, and there will be some interactive elements for you to get involved in. So as I say, if you do have any technical difficulties today, events at Office for Students are the people to contact. The session will last approximately an hour and there will be time at the end for questions and feedback. If you would like to speak or ask us a question, please use the Q&A function, and that's at the top of the toolbar for those of you who aren't familiar with Teams. And we will be recording the start of this session for students who can't attend today, and this will be published alongside the slides, but we will stop recording before receiving your feedback, so you'll be able to speak freely and discuss the prompts. What we would recommend when you are giving feedback or asking questions is just be mindful of the information that you might be disclosing. This is a public forum, as I say, we will turn the recording off, but you might want to put it in general terms in some cases. Okay, next slide, please. So today I am joined by Charlie. Unfortunately, John is not able to make today's session. But for those of you who are new to these events, I'm Emma Maskell and I'm Head of Student Engagement and Information. And I'm joined today by Charlie. Charlie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks for having me. Yes, it's great to see you all and some familiar names and faces here. So that's great. I'm Charlie. I'm the head of student participation here at the OFS, which is a little bit of a mouthful. In practice, that means that I lead the student participation team, which is responsible for some of the things we do to improve equality of opportunity in English universities and colleges. So in particular, focusing on underrepresented and disadvantaged groups of students. That includes assessing access and participation plans. Some of you may be familiar with those, and some of you may have even written student submissions for those, which were really great. So big thanks to you if you did. The team also thinks about things like the Equality of Opportunity Risk Register, UniConnect, the Equality in Higher Education Innovation Fund, and TASO, which stands for Transforming Access and Outcomes for Students, amongst other things. I lead our work on fee limits, and I also look after one of our core regulatory teams here at the OFS, which oversees regulatory matters for around 70 universities and colleges on our register. And I'll say a little bit more about why I'm here in a moment.
Thanks, Charlie. So next slide, please. So for those of you who joined us at the event in December, we asked you about some of the key issues facing students right now. So these are just some of the things that we received last time, and many of you share concerns, questions, comments about how college and university cutbacks are affecting the student experience, which led us to the topic of today's event. So as you can see, we are really listening and taking on board the feedback you're giving us in these events. So really would encourage your participation. And the first interactive element that we've got today is a poll. So we now want to do a bit of a sense check from you. And we would like to know, are you aware of the risks relating to financial health of universities and colleges? And do you feel that your university or college is considering the impact of its financial health on students? So there hopefully should be a poll popping up. Okay. Are the results in? There we go. So first one, do you feel like your university college is considering the impact of its financial health on students? 76% say yes, or somewhat. 4% say yes, all students have been considered, which is great to hear. And 16% no, not at all, with 4% unsure. Okay. Well, there'll be more chance for you to get involved later on in the session. Next slide, please. So today we will be explaining how the financial health of the sector is causing cuts and the OFS's role in this context. And we want to listen to you to understand if you feel like your university or college is considering the impact of its financial health on students. And it sounds like some are to a certain extent, but there might be a few that aren't. How cutbacks impacting your student experience. And do you think that the OFS is doing the right things to support students in the faces of cuts? At the end of today's event, there will also be a brief update on some other OFS activities too. But now I'm going to hand over to Charlie.
Thanks, Emma. And that poll was really helpful, actually. So I'm really looking forward to this session now. So I'm here today because my team are undertaking some work to understand the impact of the current financial challenges that universities and colleges are experiencing on students. So we really want your insight and advice at this very early stage of the project so that we can really shape up the things that we might look at and look into and explore further. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what the context is here, so we're all on the same page with what's going on. Some of you may be really aware of this, whereas others may have less reason to be aware, or maybe kind of coming slightly new to this. So what's the current issue then? So in 2024, we published a financial sustainability report, which highlighted the financial challenges facing universities and colleges in England. So we used the data returned to us by higher education providers and other insights as well. And using that, we forecasted a financial deterioration of universities and colleges in the long to medium term. So looking at the data as of November 2024, without interventions, so that is without providers taking steps to mitigate this, up to 72% of universities and colleges would be facing a deficit in 25-26, the academic year 25-26. And we can see that the number of providers facing financial challenges would have also increased. So we understand that, firstly, the current financial picture may be concerning to you guys, to students and student representatives, as well as obviously those working in and leading universities and colleges. I'm going to spend a little bit of time, just a few minutes, briefly outlining the reasons for this, of which there are many. So these include matters like UK and non-UK student recruitment being significantly below the sector's previous expectations. Changes to visa policies may have had an impact on this, as well as more broadly geopolitical and economic events. We are, I think we are all well aware of the costs of living. So increasing these costs of living for domestic and international students has perhaps made studying less affordable or attractive. And placing, all of these costs have placed more pressures on university budgets for financial and other support for students. It's important to say that the higher costs in general are also being felt for universities in their own overheads. So you can imagine things like electricity and the price of that going up in the energy crisis, has a really big impact on universities' operating budgets and colleges too. You will also be well aware that tuition fees have been frozen in real terms for some time. You may be aware of some of the recent government announcements relating to inflationary rises to fees, where terms and conditions of student contracts allow this, and where that's in line with relevant consumer protection guidance. But providers are kind of saying that these are still quite marginal increases that they can expect, and still they have been frozen for some time. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on this, as I really want us to focus today on the situation as it impacts you and students now. But more detail on all of this can be found in our most recent financial sustainability report, which is from back in November 24, and that can be accessed by scanning the QR code on screen if any of you would like to follow up on that. So that's the situation. We imagine that these pressures have widespread effects on colleges and universities, whilst lots of providers are thinking very carefully about how they can grow their income and make best use of their assets, and even collaborate with other organisations to make efficiencies. There may also need to be, and be already in train, further savings and cost cutting measures to make sure that they can remain financially viable and sustainable. So these are really tough decisions to be taken. It's certainly not an easy time for those working in and leading universities. And as you can imagine, those decisions may relate to things like course closures, changes to student support services, reduction in staffing, which may then impact on teaching quality, student well-being, and the student experience overall. And that's really what we want to find out more about today with you. To ensure that students' interests are protected in the face of these financial challenges, you may be aware that we've made some temporary changes to our work. So, for example, the assessment of registration applications from provider has been paused, and this has allowed us to prioritise applying our resources to managing the risks to current students, really getting under the skin of what's going on, and to support the financial resilience of the sector overall. Next slide, please. So what is our role in this context, you may be asking yourself? So we are very actively engaging with universities and colleges, and in particular, as you might expect, those that are experiencing some risks or high risks to financial viability and sustainability. We want to understand their current financial situation, the risks that they face, and we want to make sure that there are credible plans in place to address those risks. Importantly, as I say, and as I'm here, we're now engaging with you as well to really understand your perspective and your experiences of this. We continue to monitor and report on financial sustainability, such as through those annual reports that I have mentioned. We're currently preparing to collect more real-time data as well to increase our ability to really understand and monitor the financial positions of your universities and colleges, and also to help us model the impacts of particular aspects like student recruitment on financial data at relevant points of the year. We work collaboratively with universities and colleges and other stakeholders and sector bodies, such as financial experts and audit firms, to ensure a financially resilient sector. So sometimes that means that we may facilitate discussions between stakeholders, universities, colleges and experts where this may add value, and help them to kind of work collaboratively and share experiences of how they may be planning to respond to some of those financial risks, and kind of sharing learning along the way. It's important to say that whilst it is quite obviously our desire to see financially viable and sustainable universities and colleges, where that is not the case, we also have a really important role in ensuring that appropriate student protection measures are in place, and that if the worst comes to pass, that they are deployed well. So this includes the published student protection plans, which you will be able to find for your universities and colleges. They should be published. but also more detailed behind the scenes planning in the event of any risk of market exit, which is the term we use for providers that are no longer able to operate, or course closures. So in this instance, we might look to ensure that there are plans in place, and that they are very robust to make sure that students can, for example, finish their awards as far as possible on teach out arrangements. Or if that's not possible, we may look to make sure that there are plans for students to transfer to other suitable provision if they so wish, or to receive exit awards, or a mix of all of those things. Importantly, underpinning all of this, we continue to regulate in the areas that students may be impacted by, in the case of any cost-saving measures that are being taken, and that's to ensure that we're protecting and championing the needs of students. This includes our work to improve access to higher education from underrepresented and disadvantaged groups of students. It includes our regulation of quality of the academic experience, considering the student experience more broadly, such as ensuring providers encourage and support environments that we think are conducive and make sure that students are conducive to good mental health and well-being. So some of you may be aware of the work as well that we're doing to focus on, for example, harassment and sexual misconduct. And this is a result of the student feedback that we've had. And we also take a real interest in student choice, so ensuring that students are able to make informed decisions about their studies in higher education. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the current situation and our role in all of that. I'm going to stop talking now because we really want to use this session to really hear about your experience of all of this and your understanding, and in particular your views on what more we could be doing or considering in these circumstances. Next slide, please. And I'm going to hand back over to Emma at this point.
Thanks, Charlie. So we're now going to be using a Miro board to receive your feedback. If you haven't used Miro before, if you click on one of the post-its, you will be able to, again, add any points that you have. Feel free to use as many sticky notes as you like and use the arrows to link to and build on the points made. You can also, like others, posts and zoom in and out using the plus and minus buttons on the bottom of the right hand corner of the board. We're going to save this board and take feedback and use the contents to ensure it informs our work. So as you can see, the stickies from earlier on in the presentation are from the Miro board from last time. So the first question, we'll start with the yellow board on the left, where we would like to hear whether you think your university experience or your student experience has been affected by funding cuts or other financial decisions. If so, how, and what has been the impact of that? You can use examples here of how your university may have made funding cuts and how this has affected you. Okay, I can see lots of cursors on the screen, which is great. Let's see what's coming through. So we've got yes, definitely been affected, less support and staff impact on well-being. So we're actually obviously very busy typing away. As if you have any technical difficulties as well, remember that email events@officeforstudents.org.uk. Got changes to course services and decisions about which modules will run. Funding costs affecting academic staff and redundancies. Library has been cut down and library hours reduced. Reassessments taking longer to sort. Impact on facilities. Cuts to student union block grants. Reduction in support services and support staff. Recruitment freeze, meaning less support to students. Course is now totally different to when I came. These are all really good. Staffing being pared back to the bare minimum. Again, library reduced opening hours. Again, the impact on staff, less passionate than they used to be. Some of the cuts impacting their morale. And no hot food on campus, particularly with this cold weather we've been having. Again, important, particularly when there may be cost of living pressures at home. SU advice being asked to do more, again, because there might be less support centrally. Again, cancelled classes.
Can I
Merging
come
of
in here?
departments. Yeah, sure, Charlie.
Yeah, this is absolutely fascinating. And can I just request that we really think about that second bullet point? So just spell it out for us. What does this mean for students? Um, this is really, really interesting stuff.
Again, more stuff coming through, not enough staff minutes, a delay in responding to student queries. And the knock-on impact of some of the impact on cuts within universities affecting the cost of living through an increase in students accessing hardship funds, maybe cuts to hardship funds there as well. And customer service not as good for students. Got a reduction in tests for neurodivergent. There may be wider cuts in terms of, again, some learning needs too. More people struggling to cope with studies. Yeah, it's definitely going to be tough to prioritize your studies when you're having to prioritize what you're going to eat, or perhaps you're also affected by the staff cuts. I know a lot of students work on campus too. This is all really good.
This is fascinating, and it's really interesting to see how some of these things are affecting particular groups of students. So there's a really good example here of unable to use the building after 5 p.m., including the library. So students on placement are heavily affected. So any nuances around how some of these things are particularly impacting on particular groups or kind of types of provision is really, really useful for us to understand.
Definitely, and again, for those students who are working, things like reduced library hours are going to be tough in accessing resources. Got rising accommodation costs. Yeah, many of our universities perhaps run or manage their own accommodation, so that's another way of them generating revenue, but that having an impact on students too. This is all really good. Thank you, everyone. Give you a couple more minutes on this board. And again, have a think about how this is impacting you or perhaps wider students at your institution. They've got some more impacts here in terms of extension deferral policies because of the no longer able to get extensions and deferrals, perhaps because of the staffing situation. Again, reduction in support services, a common theme coming through here. Reduction in courses, some of the postgrad courses, perhaps people were looking at changes in supervisors. Again, that can be really disruptive to your course. And again, we've got continuation issues here with more students deferring or withdrawing. Got less specialist staff. Yeah. These are all really, really interesting and valuable. Thank you. A couple more minutes then, for those of you who are still typing away. Again, job losses, a theme coming through here, fears of strikes and repeating of the marking and assessment boycott that we saw last year. Again, getting studio space as well, particularly as a part-time student. And some comments here on and being able to raise issues as well, and staff saying that it's out of their hands. That's all been really interesting and so valuable. Thank you everyone for adding all those sticky notes. And we're now going to move over to our next board, which is the blue board on the right. And we want to hear what you think the OFS could do to protect your student experience in the event that your university or college needs to either undertake further measures to remain financially viable and sustainable, or B, in the worst case scenario, that your university and college is no longer financially viable. So again, the blue board should be on the right-hand side. You might need to scroll across. We'll start looking at some of your responses to this. So again, just a reminder, we want to know what you think the OFS could be doing to protect your student experience in the event that your university or college either needs to undertake further measures to remain financially viable, or in the worst case scenario that your institution is no longer financially viable and sustainable. And great to see some answers already coming in. We've got protective measures for students and measures for international student support. Ensuring that you can transfer to another degree without losing your progress. So again, how you transfer those credits, how do you make sure that the work that you've done to date is recognised? Encouraging more staff and student co-creation to ensure that you're getting feedback about any cutbacks or issues from the student perspective. Again, really important there. Making sure institutions are clear and transparent in their decision making. Again, important, involving students in those decisions. Got some more suggestions here in terms of perhaps OFS being more prescriptive and giving advice to colleges and universities on the level of support that should be provided to increase the student experience. Investigating potential financial malpractice. And again, we've got more sort of prescriptive advice or guidance led comments here in terms of recommendations for fairer salary scales. Lots of curses going around here. Ensure the scale of the problems in the sector are known. I know that Charlie and the team have been doing lots of work behind the scenes to understand that. Actually act like a regulator. if you'd like to expand on that, yeah, we're definitely open to feedback. And please, what would you like to see from us as your regulator? What are those features of a regulator you would like to see us do? Some people here want more clarity on what universities and colleges are and aren't allowed to do in terms of fees, particularly when they've already paid. So some clarity there over consumer protection and perhaps your pre-contract and contract information. Strict actions on non-compliance by universities and colleges. More support for lobbying for the increased funding for colleges. Another one coming in here. But a way to analyse how universities are spending money, such as on statues. Better communication with students on what they can do if their university or college is no longer sustainable. We've got some here on giving advance warning of whether university colleges are likely to be in a financially unviable or non-sustainable situation. Some really interesting ones here. Thank you, everyone. Any thoughts on these sort of, Charlie, as they come through and what we're currently doing at the minute?
I'm writing away furiously. This is, again, absolutely fascinating and some brilliant ideas here. I think, yes, as you say, we're doing some of this stuff already, but clearly if you don't know about it, then there's more to do to tell you what we're doing. So some of the things we are doing here that you have very helpfully kind of set out are things like ensuring universities are working in the best interests of students. So that's something we consider very, 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 very regularly and intensely, particularly where we've got those universities that may be experiencing financial difficulties. So we have quite high levels of engagement with providers that might be in that situation. Closer scrutiny on an ongoing basis on accounts and decision making. So yes, we receive regular financial information from universities in particular, although colleges there are kind of slightly different mechanisms for overseeing some of those things, although we're very joined up on that. And we are looking at kind of how regularly we might be able to get that information in future. So for anyone who's interested, we're actually and we've announced an interim financial return today, actually. Although many universities submitted a financial return to us around kind of December, January time, November, December, January. We have asked for a bit of an update following the January recruitment cycle. Obviously, we need to be really careful about not introducing too much regulatory burden here. So there's a really fine balance to achieve. And there's a real kind of risk-based approach that we take to this. So clearly where the risks are higher, we start to up our engagement and monitoring of individual providers. That might mean kind of meeting regularly with them and stakeholders to better understand the situation. And that we may request either kind of particular bits of information from them, or in the kind of most acute circumstances, we can also kind of request or I guess make providers give us additional information, or set out student protection directions, which are kind of a little bit I guess a little bit more direct in terms of our regulation. Another thing that we also do. Oh, sorry,
No, go on.
Another thing that we also do is, I think someone put in investigating potential financial malpractice. So obviously that's something we take really seriously. We've got a fabulous team here at the OFS that thinks about protecting public finances. And we would take that very seriously. So if we receive notifications or kind of allegations, or if we kind of see through other means that there are things that we might want to look into, in the very rare instance that might be happening, then we would take that very seriously. But there's some brilliant ideas here, like better communicating with students on what they can do if their course or university is no longer sustainable. So
Lots of
I'm
things
going to have
there
a
on
long night, I
consumer.
think, here,
Yeah.
Emma. Yeah, this is going to, yeah.
There's some,
Brilliant
really
ideas,
good ideas. A
everyone.
lot on, again,
Yeah.
getting what people were promised as well. So I'm going to give you one more minute just to pop your final ideas down before we move on to the Q&A session. Okay, so final few seconds before we move on to the Q&A. We've got there encouraging perhaps collaboration more between universities in the local area. Again, another great suggestion. Again, more there on consumer rights. And making guarantees if the university closes. Also got training for SUs and other student leadership to better build an understanding of OFS support. It's a really good suggestion there too. Okay. Well, that's been incredibly valuable. Thank you for everyone who has contributed to the board. As I said before, this isn't just an exercise that we will do now and think is really interesting. As Charlie said, she's been noting down some of these things. We will be looking at these and seeing what we can do, and we will feedback what we've done at a future debrief event. But it's time now to move on to our question and answer session.